So you've got your new Henry Homesteader, but you want to know how to disassemble it for cleaning and maintenance. So today I'm going to be walking you through exactly how the Henry manual says to disassemble your Henry Homesteader for cleaning and maintenance. Alright, so according to the manual, it looks like the only tools we're going to need for basic disassembly is a 1/8 inch roll pin punch, a small mallet to tap that roll pin punch, and then a 1/8 inch hex key. So I've got a bit here on my driver, but if you've got a hex key set like this, the 1/8 inch one will work just fine. Alright, before we get to the rifle itself, the Henry manual does recommend periodic cleaning of the magazine. So this is one of the Henry proprietary magazines, the little 5-rounder, and real quick I'll just show you how to disassemble it. So you go to the bottom, there's a little button in the middle, very similar to a Glock magazine. I'm going to take a little tool and just press that button in. The base plate will slide off. Put your thumb over this so the spring doesn't fly out. Pop the base plate off, and then real easily you can just take out the internal spring like that, and then the follower should fall right out. There it is. And then the manual says just brush this off and treat it with a plastic safe solvent and lubricant, and then reassemble just like we took it apart, and your magazines should be good to go. You can just watch me reassemble it here while I talk at you for a second. So as far as magazine maintenance goes, with Glock magazines, I've got a lot of experience, and they require extremely little maintenance. I mean, next to none, unless you're really getting a bunch of dirt and stuff in them. They really kind of just take care of themselves. And this is harder to do than it looks when trying to film it through a camera. There we go. All right, so there's your little 5-round magazine put back together, and that's it. All right, I've got my camera in wide view. Hopefully it looks good. So now we're going to disassemble the rifle, and you'll notice it has 1, 2, 3 pins. According to the manual, that's all you got to do is pop those 3 pins out, and then the buttstock and trigger assembly will come out. Your magazine well assembly will come out. You can remove the bolt, and then there's a screw up front on the forend we'll get to later where we can take the forend assembly off, and then your recoil spring and stuff is under here. But before we do that, we will clear the rifle, and if you've been following along my channel, you know that my particular Homesteader did not come with the charging handle. So I'm going to use this little tool to pull the bolt back and make sure there's nothing in it, which there's not. It's clear. Now we can begin disassembly. All right, to start, I've got the rifle elevated about 1.5 inches on, I'm using scrap leather. You could use, whatever you want. But you want to elevate it up a little bit so that when you pop these pins down, they're not just hitting the table. So now I'm just going to pop each pin. I guess I'll start over here. Put that right there. Get it started. I'm going to stop before I get all the way down so that the, hilt of this isn't banging into my receiver. I'm going to go here. And they are pretty stiff. You are going to need a little mallet to do this. I wouldn't be able to do it by hand. Okay. At this point, we've got our 3 pins popping out the other side. And I'm just going to yank those out by hand if I can. They are stiff. Oh my gosh, there's one. Set that to the side. All right, 2, and then hopefully this third one will come out without too much trouble. All right, so we got all 3 pins out now, and a big part of my issue was my particular roll pin punch is only that long. If you had one that's a bit longer, you could pop them right out, so that's just something to be aware of. All right, so now I've got the pins out. We can go ahead and disassemble the receiver group. So according to the manual, we're going to take the buttstock assembly, which is attached to the trigger assembly, and move it downward from the receiver. And see if I can get that to happen on camera. There we go. Just got to wiggle it. Wiggle it a little back and forth, and it'll slide right on out. There we go. Set that down. And then we've got the magazine well assembly, which should pop right out. And there we go. And here we have the three main components. We've got the buttstock and trigger group. We've got the magazine well, and then we've got the upper receiver assembly with the bolt still inside. Now, according to the manual, this is as far as you need to break it down most of the time. Most of your fouling and crud and stuff is going to be up in your receiver assembly. So from here, it says just spray everything down with a light, a gun cleaner, brush it all, wipe it down, and then put a light coat of gun oil and then reassemble just like we disassembled it. But I'm going to go a little bit further and show you how to take the bolt out and the recoil assembly. Also, the manual suggests cleaning the barrel, the bore, from the rear, like all gun manufacturers suggest that, so you don't damage the crown of the barrel and mess up the rifling there at the end of the barrel. And it says in the manual that Henry sells a unique kit where it's a pull-through kit. It's sort of like a bore snake, but I guess it's proprietary to clean the bore out, and that you'd want to do that when the rifle's fully assembled. That way you can lock the bolt back to the rear and clean the bore that way, and then just disassemble the gun for cleaning of the interior of the receiver and the trigger group and such. It also says, because I don't want to be remiss and include everything, that you should not try to disassemble the trigger group any further, and that the magazine well assembly shouldn't be disassembled any further. All you got to do is spray it down, wipe it off, brush it, and they're good to go. All right, so if you want to break it down further than this and really give it a good deep cleaning, which again the manual suggests isn't required very often at all, what you're going to do is around the front, you've got this little hex bolt here, and you're going to take your 1/8 inch hex wrench or bit, come in here, and it's not on there too tight, and go ahead and remove this screw. Come on. There it is. All right, so there's your screw. Set that to the side. Don't lose it. And then your fore end should slide off to the front. And there it is. Fore end comes right off. There's that. Set that to the side. And now you've got your recoil spring assembly visible. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get these action bars off from this recoil weight. And so what we do is we're going to take our left hand, we're going to squeeze and hold them back here towards the receiver. Then we're going to take our other hand, and up here you can push back on this weight, and so it holds those action bars in place. And then holding it, it relieves tension on these action bars. And you can see there in the receiver, it popped free of the bolt. And then I'm just going to slide that out like that. That one's free. And then this one might be a little tricky. My hand's in the way. Same thing. And this is under a lot of tension. And I'm sure this will become easier with practice. There you go. You just got to finagle it a little bit. That one comes right out. And then your bolt should come out now because it's not connected anymore. So I'm going to slide that bolt down out of the receiver from the forward position. And there's your bolt. There's your now empty receiver. And that's as far as the manual suggests you go. And as far as what's left, your recoil weight and your recoil spring, all this stuff is captive. It's held in place. You've got this little key here attached to the barrel with a bolt. And you can clean all this stuff without disassembling it any further. You don't need to take this stuff apart. And also at this point, you can clean the bore from the rear. You do have a straight shot in through the back of the receiver. So if you're using cleaning rods and stuff, you don't have to come in through the muzzle and potentially damage the crown. Once you get the bolt out like that, you do have a straight shot in from the back, which is really nice for cleaning your bore. And so now you've got your action bars out, your bolt out, your receiver is empty, and you can clean all this stuff with a quality gun solvent, and then brush it clean, wipe it down, and coat it in a good lightweight gun oil. All right, from here we're going to put it all back together. We're going to pick up your receiver assembly, pick up your bolt. We're going to drop that right down in. Slides right in, perfect. Then I'm going to use my thumb and keep it back up in there. Then we're going to take our action bar for the ejection port side, and I think that's actually, yeah, it's this one. And use that the key on the back, the little key deals go up. And so we're going to slide that in through the groove in the receiver, set it right there. We're going to turn over and do the same thing with the other one. Again, your little, I don't know, key deal, the teeth of that face up in the receiver. We're going to slide that in the other groove. Try and get it back in there. And you can see down in there, the bolt has little places for those key teeth, for lack of a better term, to go in. And so gonna pop those in, got them in that side, and then over on this side we'll do the same thing. There we go. Make sure that bolts attach the action bars, and then you can see this is all cattywampus, so we're gonna hold the action bars and then try and push this weight backwards. And it is as difficult as it looks. And then we should be able to get everything aligned. There we go. That one popped in. And then that one just popped in. And then release it. I can't believe that went as well as it just did. And there we go. Your action bars and recoil assembly and bolt and all that are now reinstalled. At this point, we'll put the forend back on to protect all that assembly. Come up front, just sort of slide it over top of all that. There's a little notch on the wood here. I'll zoom in. See where the wood is kind of sticking out there? That goes into a little notch in the receiver so that you know it's all aligned. There we go, just like that, pops in. And then we come back around to the front and we take our little hex screw and just get that going. And then we'll just make it snug. There's not like torque specs or anything for this, just snug. I imagine it doesn't have to be overly tight. All it's doing is holding the forend on. And then from here, we'll just put all the assemblies back together. I'm gonna take my receiver assembly, pop my magazine well up in here, and there's a little tab on the front there, right there. That will slide up over a groove in the receiver here to lock it in place. So that just goes right in there, pushes right up in there, nice and easy. And now we're going to slide the buttstock and trigger assembly back up in there, and this vertical bar right here, it's on both sides and it slides in grooves in the receiver almost straight up. So that's what we have to align in order to get it to go in there. There we go. Just takes a little finagling, boom, popped right in just like that. And then I just raised the rifle up on my pieces of scrap leather just to give it a little bit of cushioning for when I tap those pins in. So now what I'm going to do is just take one pin at a time and put them in each of the holes. All the pins are exactly the same, so you could use any of them in any of the holes, at least they appear to be. And you always want to put the pins in, at least for this rifle, from this side of the receiver that way. At least that's what I found when I was playing around with it. They seem to go in this way much easier, so I'm going to go ahead and just do that. And there you have it. Your Henry Homesteader 9mm carbine has just been disassembled, cleaned, and then reassembled. Of course, we didn't show the cleaning itself. And if you had a charging handle for yours, at this point you could pop yours back in. Of course, I used the plastic side of my little mallet here when tapping these pins in to avoid damaging the finish. Just be careful. And then as far as caring for the stocks, they've got a polyurethane type finish, so they don't really need any special upkeep. Wipe them off with a clean cloth and you should be good to go. I really hope you enjoyed that video, y'all. I'm going to be having a whole lot more content on the Henry Homesteader coming up real soon. Going out to the range, shooting it at close range, long range, fast, slow, seeing how it does. And check out my leather shop if you'd like something handmade by me just for you. The link is in the pinned comment. I'd love to make you something. Thanks for watching.